99.9 Punk World Radio FM. This is Elite Wrestle Talk, episode 27, and we are live, and we have the legendary, we got the American Giant, 7'3", 300 plus pounds of American muscle. We got Buck Brezner right here, live on the radio. Buck, how you doing tonight?
Good, my brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great, best as I could possibly be. I just got to thank you in advance for a bit of your time. Huge fan of what you've done in the squared circle, from your days in the WCW to the independent scene. You have done some amazing stuff. So thank you so much for a bit of your time.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, brother.
But I know you are a very busy guy, Buck, so I'm not going to take you away from your night too long. I'm going to dive right into it. And I got to take you back to the beginning of your wrestling training, where you actually were trained by the legendary Boris Malenko, who is the father of the legendary Dean Malenko. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a story about meeting Boris, and of course, what was it like just training alongside him during the early days of your career?
Well, brother, I'll give you a little history behind that. When I was back in high school, I was a sophomore, a junior in high school, rather. I tried out for the JV basketball squad, and I got cut on the third cut. And I make a long, you know those long, big garbage cans they used to have way back when?
Yeah.
Well, one time I got really disgusted. I shot that against the locker, and a friend of mine came in and trying to calm me down because I was having a hard time. That's the fact that I was getting cut. So the next day, I went to school, and my and the wrestling coach comes up to me. He says, "Buck, come here. I want to talk to you for a minute. I heard about you getting cut from the basketball squad." He goes, "Oh, by the way, I heard you had a big interest in professional wrestling." I'm like, "How did you know about that?" He said, "The word is out on you, big man." And he said that he went to Ithaca College with one of the all-time greats he was great friends with, who worked with back then the World Wrestling Federation. I said, "Yeah, right." Well, I thought he was ribbing me at the moment. He wasn't ribbing. And he turns around and said, "You really want to know who it is?" I said, "Yeah. My good friend is Gorilla Monsoon." And he goes, "When you go down to the arena and go to see the show tomorrow night, you tell Gorilla I said hello." Make a long story short, it came back to him that I saw Gorilla. And when I graduated from high school, I got a letter one day from Mike Rotundo, IRS, to a friend of mine's mom, telling me that he recommended me to go to Buffalo to be trained by the late, great Dick the Destroyer Byer. And Dick Byer just resigned from professional wrestling. He sent my information to Boris Malenko. He asked me, "Have you ever heard of the great Malenko?" I said, "No, I never have." Well, 2 days later, you'll be getting a phone call. And he's right. 2 days later, I got a phone call. He got me down there, started training, and I had a blast. I love training at the Malenko Academy, and that's how I got my first start.
And Boris is such a legendary wrestler. Obviously, Dean Malenko as well. The Malenko family has such a rich history within the wrestling community. You can't go wrong with the Malenkos. Some of the best
Oh,
wrestlers to
heavens,
ever
yeah.
grace professional wrestling.
Right. I called Boris Malenko, and I mentioned this on Facebook many times. He is the dad of professional wrestling. He always took care of you. He always made sure things are done right. And if you made him mad, he believe me, he will let you know it.
And also,
And
before we move off the topic of Boris as well, I do know as well that during your time actually training with Boris Malenko, not only did you have the opportunity to train alongside his son Dean, but I also read that you had the opportunity to Glenn Jacobs as well. You had the opportunity to train alongside him, which now the wrestling world knows him as Kane or the Tennessee governor. But with that being said, what was it like actually just being able to be there and just train with a very young Glenn Jacobs at the time?
Glenn was a great guy. Working with wrestling with Glenn, training with him was one of the best things I can ever do. And the reason I tip my hat off to Glenn because he taught me a lot of things that I never even knew. I would never even thought of. And he was like, "Buck, come here. I want you to do this, 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 and this." And I did it. And We did it nice and slow, worked it out. It, we had that good chemistry back then, and believe me, I can't even say better thing than Glenn. He's a great guy to work with. Very respectful.
And I do know he's in politics now, and I do know obviously, age catches up to everyone, but I really do wish we would actually see Kane back on television. Maybe one more brief run, but I don't think that's ever going to happen, unfortunately. I think the only time he's going to be back is when he does get inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's very is probably right there. But I try to get a hold of Glenn on several occasions. He's a busy guy, just like everybody else is. I'll probably try to reach out to him again in here in the future, but well, we'll see what happens. I mean, he maybe he'll respond, maybe he won't, and go from there. So all I can do is try.
And one of your very first matches was actually a six-man tag match in Tampa, Florida at the Sportatorium, where Boris actually put on the show. Looking back on your very first match, can you tell us listeners a bit more about this opportunity? And do you call Boris his thoughts on everything after the match was concluded? Because I do know this was very many years ago, but I'm pretty sure everyone remembers it first.
Well, the very first 6-man tag. Wow. I tagged up with a young guy by the name of Luis Morales and another guy by the name of Jose Lopez. We had a great combination, and they our opponents, the Raven and the Black Demon, and I think it's Hot Stuff Eddie Jackie or somebody. I forget what his name was. When I stepped over that top rope for the very first time, they all ran out of the ring, fearing me, and it's like, okay, just go in there and beat the hell out of them. Excuse my language. But it was a great experience. I mean, Boris looked on. He said you did a great job for the most part, but certain things you got to work on, and that's about it. And that's all you got. You just got to get the experience that way. Because if you don't get that experience, get it down, it's not going to work for you. And thankfully it worked for me.
And especially as well, you have such an amazing physique for wrestling because there's not a lot of giants in wrestling. Like there is if you really think about it, but compared to the other wrestlers, there's not a lot of giants that are over 7 feet, especially this day and age. So it's really great to see that you're still wrestling and you're still using your height and your build within the ring. Because I've seen some amazing matches from the '90s of you, and even currently today, and you are definitely a force to be reckoned with in that squared circle.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's harder and harder for me to get booked these days because they want to bring in smaller talent, lighter guys. They will go flip flop flip flop flip flop, not even going in there and wrestling. Well, here's the problem that I ran into, and um, the problem is this: the promoters does not want to bring in giants anymore because they want to make their small guys shine. And on top of that, the new talent today don't even know how to wrestle a giant like my size. I ran into that problem as well. And here I am, but way back when I wrestled with the NWO, when I tagged up with Pistol Fez Wally through the current here today, a lot of talent today don't even know how to wrestle compared to what back then. And if they think they do, no, they don't. Because number one, they never have. And number two, they got to really watch old tips and old school because that's where it started from. Now, whether they're scared of me, I don't know. But I do know one thing: if I ever get a chance to wrestle any guys smaller than me, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to show them, hey, it can be done. You just got to use the right psychology. That's all it is.
And speaking of a giant as well, you actually had a lot of different wrestling personas, but with one of them actually being in 1993, where you were actually known as a 7 foot Sasquatch. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us the story behind this persona, and of course, who ultimately came up with the Sasquatch idea back in the day.
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I was working for a warehouse in Clearwater, Florida, and I just graduated at that point from Boris Malenko's camp, and my supervisor came up to me one day and goes, "Hey, I got a good name for you." I said, "Okay, tell me. How about the 7 foot Sasquatch?" I thought about it. And I said, okay, I'll use it. No problem. So it came from my supervisor at work. And ever since then, um, it worked out pretty darn well. And when I had my very first match at the Sportatorium, well, actually, was it the first match? No, second. I wrestled a guy by the name of the Grave Digger. And when I stepped over the top rope, I was one of the baddest heels in the business back when I first started. And there was a lot of cops there that night. So I grabbed the microphone, looked around. I'm like, you know, what does the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office have in common? You damn officers don't even know how to walk, chew gum, and make an arrest at the same time. And if you think you have to be retrained, go see my good friend, the Big Boss Man. Oh, they did not like that at all. And I got bad heat on that one that night. I'll never forget it. And towards the end of that match, I made a little girl cry. And the parents came up to me afterwards and said, "Sir, can we talk?" I said, "Sure. How can I help you?" And they told me what happened. Um, Ever since I made her cry, she became happy again. She became one of my top fans at that point. And ever since then, we all made peace and go from there. She became my number one fan after that. I mean, we're talking about an 8 or 9 year old girl, young lady. But
Does does she still follow you today? Because I know social media makes everything a lot easier to kind of get in contact with her favorite wrestlers. Does she still follow you today on social media? Obviously,
I
back
have
then there
no
was no social media.
right back then it wasn't. But I have no idea if she would remember who I am or anything like that. But I do know that I know there's a lot of people following me from anywhere on the East Coast out west because I wrestled out west a few times. It, anybody can follow me any given time. There's no question about that, and I'm very thankful for that. And every time I step into that ring today, when Born in the USA starts playing, um, it really puts that in my blood, ready to go and try to defeat an opponent that needs to be taken care of. And to me, that's very special because I just want to go out there and defeat somebody in an honest way, not in a cheating way or anything like that, but in an honest way. That's how it is today, especially.
And also, November 23rd, 1996, you actually yourself and Pez Watley challenged the Outsiders for the WCW World Tag Team Championships in an empty arena match on NWO Saturday Night. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us the story behind this opportunity, and of course, what was it like being a part of this unique and one of a kind WCW event?
Oh, that day, that night, that was a very, very surprising night, I will say. The booker of WCW, which was Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, as he left the WWE, I think at that point he transitioned to WCW as one of the road agents. I was approached by one of the top wrestlers asking me, would I be willing to tag up with Pistol Pez Watley? I said, sure. After, then he said, well, let's go see Paul Orndorff. He wants to see you. No problem. He asked me if I was in great shape. I had to get checked out by the doctor, and everything came out fine. He says, okay, go get your gear. You'll be going on Monday night in about an hour and a half. No problem. Got suited up, talked to Pez, went over everything on that, and um, and then the officials came in, you know, and sorry about that. I had a spam call come in. Ugh, I hate them damn things. Anyway, what it was a good experience. I mean, even though I got my butt whipped bad by Kevin Nash in the most part of the match, it's an experience that you had to take a chance to do what you have to do. You never know. You know, we could have defeated the NWF if we wanted to. I'm not saying we were, or whatever the case is, but it's a good experience to have, and I'm glad I did it. And it was a big payday that night. For me, it was. And a lot of people were like, well, came up to me afterwards. He goes, well, we saw you on WCW Saturday night. I said, thank you. Have you ever thought about going to the WWE? I said, well, I tried that. That didn't work out at that point. And there's a history behind that one, brother. I'll tell you that. But um, after that was done, the officials came up to me afterwards and they said, "You did your best and you did a great job. Even though you got your butt whipped, you did a good job." And to me, that's very important to hear. And if you never got that experience, um, I'm just thankful I did. I'll put it that way. But
And especially with it being WCW, I have to say that event. I don't think that event was actually officially televised. I think it was pre-taped, but just
right,
watching that whole entire event, it was definitely a very unique wrestling broadcast. I think even during your match, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, they were going back and forth doing their own commentary. You had
oh yeah,
Ted DiBiase there in their corner as well. It just felt like a very busy show currently because you obviously had like wrestling and commentary at the same time. Was it difficult to actually get through that match? Because it wasn't your traditional wrestling match with fans and the commentators halfway across the arena. Like everything was kind of right smack dab in the ring that night. Was it difficult to kind of transition into something like that? Snap of the fingers.
not really. Everything I thought everything went nice and smooth. There was a couple of tough spots, but nothing out of the ordinary. And got through it fine. 9 minutes later, I go home with a good payday. And payday is not the important thing. It's getting the experience that I needed to have. And wrestling the NWO. I even wanted a match with either, and I asked him this. I even wanted a match with Hollywood Hulk Hogan or Kurt Hennig, one or the other. But that didn't work out. So that's fine. You never know what can happen in this business, brother. I could get a phone call tomorrow asking me to go to the WWE. You never know, you know. But you just don't know.
And speaking of Hollywood Hulk Hogan, did you have any backstage interactions with him? If so, how was Hulk Hogan with you? Because, like, obviously, as we already know, there is some stories where he's really nice to people, and then there's some where people are like, I never even seen him because I do know, I don't know if it was around this time, but I do know in WCW he had his own dressing room completely away from the rest of the talent. Like, did you have any interactions with Hulk Hogan?
No, I never did. Did I see him walk in and walk out? Yes, I did. I said hello to him. He said hello back. As far as interacting with him, no, never did. Like you said, he had his own deal, and okay, that's fine. Everybody does things differently, and there are times after I got done with that match, I would see Hulk on Clearwater Beach all the time because I used to go by his beach shop, and I'll tell you another story about this. I just got back from a match one time from Memphis, Tennessee, and I thought I was going to go down to the beach for the day just to go shopping, whatever. And there's a couple of fans down there who knew who I was, and they asked me. They said, "Are you going to see Hulk Hogan?" I said, "No. Why? What's up? What's going on with the Hulk?" They said they had a autograph meet and greet upstairs from his beach shop. I said, "Well, okay, I'll probably check it out." And a lot of people came up. They took pictures with me. Hulk pulls up. Everybody started shouting Hogan. I said, "Well, you're not here for me. Go and support Hulk and his meet and greet." So I'm sitting there drinking a pop and eating a hot dog. Hulk and his daughter Brooke came up. I think with his second wife. I think at the time. I forgot what her name was. Hulk stared at me. I stared at him. Eye to eye. He turns around. He goes, "You know what? I know this big man because my crew wrestled him in Pistol Pez in WCW." And shook hands, give me a brotherly hug, asked me how I was doing. Good. And said, "We'll talk later, big man." And that was it. That was it. And before you know it, he went on to his meet and greet. And people were like, "You know him?" "What did the man just say? If he knows who I am, I don't know him personally, but I only know him by acquaintance. If that makes any sense."
And it's really cool and humbling just to know that you made that type of impression on Hogan. Because obviously back in those days, he was running with Bischoff. The NWO was like running wild. No pun intended, but literally running wild in WCW. So it's really cool that he actually remembered you and actually gave you that recognition a few
Yes.
years after that, man.
Absolutely. And I tell everybody else, man, just because Hulk Hogan's here, just because you're into the top stars, you're human beings just like everybody else, no matter what it is. And some of them had the big head. I'll be honest with you. But the thing that I do about that is when I see a cross that, I just pray for them and hope for the best. Say hi, how are you, and move on. You know, just keep doing your normal thing.
And after this amazing match on NWO Saturday night, was there any potential interest from World Championship Wrestling about a potential contract to offer you, whether it's full time or part time, to actually join their company?
Not that I know of. If there was, I'm sure they would have got a hold of me. I would have loved to work for World Championship Wrestling. Um, you know, if the opportunity was there, if I was offered, yeah, I'd be like, yeah, let's talk, and I'll be more than happy to talk with them. Not a problem. And I enjoyed the locker room there. I enjoyed talking to like guys like the Big Show, the Barbarian, Ming, the Steiner brothers, all the guys that transitioned from the WWE down to WCW. When it came to WCW, some of them started talking to me a little bit and they were being respectful. Well, some of them had their attitudes, and you just got to override that and just do your job and do the best you can. And I had a tougher time. This is a funny story on this. Um, I had a tougher time going to the WWE and trying to apply for a spot up there. That's a whole different ballgame there, especially with Vince McMahon. Oh God, Jesus, God bless his soul. I'll put it that way. There's a little history on that one, but you know, I would have loved to work for either company, but it just depends how it goes. I mean, it just depends what it is. People would say, "Well, you can do this, this, and that, and the other thing." Well, if it's not meant for you to be there, don't sweat it. There's a reason. That simple.
And And speaking of that experience with Vince McMahon, I kind of heard a little bit about this, but obviously, it's internet speculation. Obviously, stories can change throughout every single time people like talking about the one story. So, with that being said, if you don't mind me asking you, what actually happened that day with Vincent Kennedy McMahon when you actually went up to meet him?
Well, Vince came up to me. I shook hands with him, and he shook hands with me. Him and Pat Patterson came back behind the parking lot at the Sun Dome, and I said, Vince, if there's an extra talent that you need to use, I'd be more than willing to work for you or wrestle for you rather, not work. Sorry. He smacked my hands away from him. He says, "Get the f away from me. We don't deal with jabronis like you." I'm like, "Well, okay, no problem. Just show respect." And he walked away. Word got back to the late Chief J Strongbow and George the Animal Steel. Strongbow comes up to me. He goes, "Big guy, come here. Uh, Rumor has it that you went to Vince. Is that true?" I say, "Yes, sir. That's true." He goes, "Brother," he says, "I'm gonna be honest with you. Never go to Vince. Come to us. We're the bookers. A lot of guys are leaving the World Wrestling Federation because of Vince McMahon and different situations going on." I said, "I didn't mean to cause no harm." He goes, "No, no, no, no. You just broke in. That's how you learn." I said, "Okay." And a little while later, the security came up and says, "If you do not leave the property immediately, we're going to have you arrested for trespassing." Well, okay. Do you know where the Tampa Sportatorium is on Albany Avenue? They say yes. If I catch you guys there, I'm going to have you guys arrested. You don't mess with the talent like that, no matter what. Don't disrespect the talent, and don't try to manipulate them just to get your gain. And that night, I was a straight shooter on that one. I will not put up with no crap from nobody. You just gotta be truthful, be stern in a loving way, and that's simple. And Vince McMahon, I tell you, he was a great announcer back in the day. I really enjoyed watching him, but man, over the years, his attitude changed a lot of ways, and a lot of guys left because of him. And all I can say is, well, it's not meant for me to be there. No problem. Um,
And I gotta say, even after the years as well, like his booking style and like show running aspect went downhill as well. And I'm not sure if you watched the last year or so of Vince McMahon's television broadcasts, but they were very interesting to say the least. I like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously I'm not a booker, I'm just a consumer, but I got to say, once TKO actually took over, I found that just the overall wrestling actually became a lot better in my opinion.
Well, TKO, I think, has done much better, much better. No question about that. There are some things that I found out, and you could tell on his interview that Vince McMahon has lied about a lot of things. You
Oh
could tell
yeah.
that there's no telling about that. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm like, Vince, how can you go around telling people that this happened, that this happened, that this happened, you don't even know about it? Brother, you're lying to the fans. Don't lie to the fans, man. And I also heard in the past that if Vince McMahon Sr. was still around, he would not be pleased with Junior. He would bust his butt on it. And I know he would. Senior, I would rather work for Vince McMahon Sr. anytime versus Junior. And no, I'm not saying anything negative or bad about Junior, but I'll tell you one thing: he made a lot of dumb mistakes. I'll leave it at that.
Oh, he definitely did. But
And
also going back, I was gonna say going back to the '90s as well. You actually became the WPWF champion for a local Florida promotion, where you actually met the late great and the phenomenal, the genius Lanny Poffo. I was wondering if you can actually
yes,
just tell us a bit more about your time in Florida and just working alongside the genius, because he honestly is one of the best to ever do it. God bless his soul.
Lanny Poffo was one. I met Lanny Poffo when I was a sophomore in high school. And anytime he came up to Syracuse, I would run into him. He asked me how I was doing. And then my senior year, he gave me an autograph, took a picture with him, and he goes, I predict one day I'm going to see you in the ring. And I told him, and when I graduated from high school, I saw him for the last time right before I relocated to Tampa. I said, Lenny, I'm going to Tampa to train. He goes, who's training you? I said, I'm going to Boris Malenko's camp. He goes, big guy, you picked one of the best schools in the state of Florida and best in the country. Learn well. I'll see you down there. And sure enough, I saw Lanny many times down in Florida. And one time I got a call from the WPWF asking me, and I just won the belt against the Russian assassin that night, about 2 or 3 weeks before. They asked me, Buck, would you be willing to put the WPW title on the line against the genius Lanny Poffo? I said, sure. I said, I'd be more than happy to wrestle Lanny. Lanny and I had a great scientific match, excellent match. And the match ended by disqualification because they had an outside interference. And the ring announcer announced, hey, Lenny, how do you feel about this? Lenny went around and said, I don't mind winning the match, but when it comes to cheating, I'm going to give the belt back to the 7-foot Sasquatch. Therefore, he's still your champion because I will not take it away from him. He's a fine champion. And then later on that night, they announced a tag team match. It was J.D. Slaughter and what's his name? The Lebanese assassin. They will wrestle against the combination of the 7-foot Sasquatch and the genius Lanny Poffo. And the good news about this is his dad, the late great Angelo Poffo, was in our corner. And we won the match. I gave the guy the big boot. Then he went off the top rope, does this flip, and we got the victor. And one thing I will say about Mr. Angelo, he came up to me, he goes, big guy, you did a good job. And he goes, well, by the way, that WCW Nitro, good job. He goes, keep up the good work. Now, getting a compliment from a legend like Mr. Angelo was very meaningful, and I took that to heart. He says, "You're going to do good in the ring in the future," and I just kept on going. All you can do.
And you also actually pioneered a new style of professional wrestling known as powerful strength style. For the listeners that actually might not know about this style of wrestling, can you kind of break it down for us and tell us a bit more about this amazing style of professional wrestling that you actually pioneered within the entire wrestling community.
You're talking about the strength that I use and the way I do things. But the
Yeah.
most important thing is you try and wear them down in the right way, And if they start to cheat, I'll be like, okay, this is how I'm going to handle this. I put a lot of pressure, whether by wrist lock turning into a bear hug, whatever, and squash them in the corner, or even a choke slam or the big boot. They get the one down quick and use that power behind the momentum, so to speak. It's like Gorilla Monsoon says, the irresistible force versus the immovable object. Now, how is a guy like 6 foot or under is going to try to maneuver a giant? It's going to be hard for them to do unless they think smart. Now, some of them do think smart. There's no question about it. But the important thing is, I just use my strength. They submit or get pinfall 1, 2, 3, and that was the end of that. And after that, it's all over with. I just use my strength the way I was taught by watching Andre or Blackjack Mulligan, John Studd, Bundy, and a whole host of others. To me, if I was to step in the ring with the Great Khali, would that bother me? No. But anybody can get defeated in wrestling, no matter what size you are. It's the psychology and wearing them down is the trick. That's where it is on that one.
The one professional wrestler that I would love to see you wrestle is actually Omos. I think you guys would have a stellar match. I believe you guys are about the same size, height-wise as well. It would just be an absolute colossal match.
Well, if anybody wants to book that match, I'll be more than willing to wrestle them. No question about it, and no problem with it.
So promoters, you heard it here first. Whoever's promoting, Omos, he's not signed to WWE anymore. He's a free agent. The American Giant, free agent, independent. Let's make that happen. Just make sure you have your ring reinforced.
Not only that match, there's one other match that I want to see happen. And I've been trying to get this book for a long time. Nobody seems to bite it. I would like to say USA versus Cuba. The American Giant steps in the ring with the Cuban Assassin. And I mentioned this on Facebook the other night. Just like the late great Superfly Jimmy Snuka would say, you got to have respect for each and every individual professional wrestler. This is my problem. If I see cheating, I will do my best to stop the cheating. That's my goal. And Fidel Sierra, the Cuban, he's a great wrestler. And he's a great wrestler. He's been around a long time, very well experienced, been champion all over the place. And I would love to step in the ring with him one last time, maybe more times. You never know where. But here's the problem. The bookers will not book it. I'm asking the promoters today, book that match between myself and the Cuban Assassin. Let's get this job done. I'm begging you and I'm asking.
And what stipulation do you want actually on that match? Do you just want a regular, normal one-on-one match, or do you want to make the stakes higher, like last man standing, or what stipulation would you want on that match, or would you just want a simple one-on-one match?
There's basically a simple one-on-one match. And if I was asked to do a stipulation, the winner of that match will have his flag raised above the ring.
I like that. I really thought that's a creative twist, and I like it.
And like I said, the Cuban Assassin, he's a very well experienced wrestler. I do respect the heck out of him as a professional athlete. He's been around for a long time, and I wrestled him way back in the early '90s. And I would like to step in the ring with him again. And like I said before, if anybody wants to see a great old school match, I'm asking these promoters today, book this match between myself and the Cuban Assassin, and let's see the best man win.
And also in 2015, you actually started calling yourself the American Giant. For the past 10 years, I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about this gimmick and what ultimately inspired you to become a 7'3" American Patriot inside and of course outside the ring. Because I got to say, this is the best version of Buck Brezner, in my opinion. You've had a lot of great personas over the years, but I find the American Patriot is the best one.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. After a while, I was going through some personal situations while I was with the 7 Foot Squad, and I was advised to take a break from the ring for a while, which I did, and I'm very thankful I did, and to reevaluate some things and clean some things up that needs to be wiped out, and no more uh, chicanery, so to speak. And uh, there was a referee down here by the name of Hurricane Bob, Bob Hamill. God bless his soul. He's in heaven now. He called me over to his house one day, and Bob said, "Buck, I got an idea. We can call you now." I said, "Okay." He goes, "What do you think about calling you, transition to a name that's 7 Foot American Giant?" I thought about it. I said, "Okay." I said, "I don't want to go patriotic every time because you don't want to over what do you call it, oversell it, so to speak, or overkill it, so to speak." I said, I love to represent the United States. Don't get me wrong. And I said, okay, I'll go with the American Giant. And I said, I thought about it for little while longer. And I thought about, well, if they call Hulk Hogan the immortal Hulk Hogan, why not call me the American Giant Buck Brezner? Now, Buck Brezner part of it came from Paul Orndorff when I would wrestle in WCW. He told me to put an extra letter in my last name to stretch it out. And that worked out pretty darn well because when I was wrestling in Florida, I was stalked by so many fans. I almost had to call the police one time. And after the match, it's done, it's over, it's home time. When I leave in the ring, stays in the ring until the next match. Granted. And I said, okay, I'll go with the American Giant. There's 3 reasons why they call me the 7'3" American Giant. I just want to make all the fans understand this. 1, I'm 7'3". 2, I'm an American. And 3, this is the most important part. They call me the giant in heart, not in size. That means I have a giant heart to step in the ring with anybody that they want me to wrestle. There's only one true giant in professional wrestling history of it, and that is Andre the Giant. He's the eighth wonder of the world. He's the true giant. I may be 7'3", but I am not the giant like Andre was. Yes, um, I love to wrestle anybody, but I have a giant heart because I want to step in the ring with anybody in the United States, whether they're legends from WCW, the WWE, or on the independent scene. I'll go anywhere I can. If they call me up and say, hey, I'll use this as an example, brother. Would you be willing to wrestle the Indian Native American Tatanka? I'd be more than happy to if he agrees to it. Sure, no problem. You got to take those chances, and that's how you get the um, respect that you get, and just go out there and work, wrestle hard, and lead by example, so to speak, in wrestling. And that's my job. That's what I want to do is lead by example, and just go out there and do it. Because if you don't take a chance, how you know it's going to lead?
And one question I do have to ask, 'cause it kind of just popped in my head when you mentioned Andre the Giant, and you could definitely skip this question by any means. But when Andre the Giant, as we already know, Andre the Giant, and I believe Big Show as well, had giantism. Is that
Mhm.
is that how you got to 7'3" as well, or was this just really good genes that just made you grow to 7'3"?
I start when I was a kid. I'm glad you asked that question. I don't mind sharing that. I did start off with a giantism problem like Andre did, but the good news about it is, when I was 18 years old, I started slowing down, and I was advised to get a physical every year to get my health checked out. And the doctor came back saying that he's in great health. There's no immediate dangers in his health or anything like that. Finally, when I was about 22 or 23, I stopped at 7 feet. And ever since then, I get a physical every year. I'm in great shape. There's nothing out of the ordinary. I may have arthritis in my knees. Everybody's got arthritis in their knees, but no, he said I'm in great shape, and that's a good thing about it. And I'm very, very thankful to the good Lord above for watching over me personally, for having good health. And you just got to go to the gym, do cardiac stuff, just to keep your body in good shape. I try to do that in between that and working all the time. But no, Andre's situation is different than mine, and as everybody knows, it's a shame that he died at the age of 43 in France. That broke my heart. I enjoyed watching Andre and his work. He was a great wrestler. That's all I can say.
And also, November 14th of 2024, you actually had the opportunity to wrestle and return to GCW for their event Chaos in Kentucky. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about this particular event, and of course, will fans get a chance to see a Buck Brezner in Game Changer Wrestling in the near future?
Well, I would like to go to Game Changer Wrestling anytime. November 14th, I was not able to wrestle that time because I had cataract surgery. Yeah, all that went well, and the doctor cleared me, and very thankful for that. If Game Changer Wrestling was to call me right now and book a match, I would accept it immediately. Um, you know, I go anywhere. Like I said, the Giants going to stick out no matter where. You know, people say I'm a special attraction. That may be true, and I appreciate that very, very much. So I will go anywhere where they ask me, whether it's GCW or TNA, Impact, WWE. If they call me to work a match with them, I'll be more than happy to work with them. Yeah, they're no different. They're no different than independents. I'll put it that way. No different.
And
And
also, Saturday, April 12th, 2025, you actually won the RCW Heavyweight Championship, where you actually defeated Chris O'Brien at RCW Spring Mayhem in
mm,
Sims, Illinois. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about this match, and of course, what is it like having that gold wrapped around your waist?
well, what happened was a month before I won the Battle Royal, which deemed the number one contender for the heavyweight championship, and I was advised by the promoters and the officials, you have to have a choice. You either cash it in real quick and wrestle that night for the title, or you have to wait down the line and along with another contenders. I had to think about that. I'm like, oh, geez, okay. I'm gonna have to cash it in. So I went to the ring that night, and Chris O'Brien got a little upset at first, and I said, Chris, look, I said, you know, I have to do this because this is the official's decision. Everybody did not like that, and the match had to progress, and I defeated him within 2 minutes. I came back up. He came back up. I shook his hand. I said, Chris, look, number one, you are, as far as I'm concerned, you can have a title shot at any given time, day or night. I will give it to you. I respect you. And RCW, I want you to hear my voice clearly. I may be the champion now, but this guy deserves a title match. I'm more than willing to wrestle, no problem. And or any other number one contenders. But Chris O'Brien, like I said, we're still good friends, and it's just one of those things where I had to cash in my part of the deal with them because time was running out. I had to take care of it. I mean, I didn't not want to do it because I didn't think that was fair to Chris, but it had to be done,
Business is
and
business.
it has to be. It's not that. Like I said, it's not that I didn't want to do it. I did not want to wrestle Chris that night under these circumstances. No, I thought it was I thought it was out of whack. Chris deserves to be champion, but I am more than willing to wrestle him anytime. There's no question about it.
And before we move off the topic of RCW, when is the next event? And of course, when can the RCW fans expect the American Giant, their heavyweight champion, back in the RCW ring?
I will. I'm scheduled to be there June 14th back at Stens um, to defend the title, whoever they want me to wrestle. I have no problem with that either. But I am scheduled to be back there on 14th.
And speaking of schedulings, actually, before we actually start to wrap things up, obviously, you're an amazing independent wrestler. You have been wrestling all over the country, up and down America, from the south, west, north, east, all over the place. But what are some of your up and coming bookings? That way, the listeners of the radio station can make their way out and see the American Giant, 7'3", 300 plus pounds of American muscle, whoop some ass.
Well, I will be in. Like I said, I'll be in Sims, Illinois. I got two events that day. One in Hogbrook, Illinois. Yes, I will be up there on Saturday afternoon, June 14th. I'll be at RCW in Sims, Illinois, Saturday night, defending my title. I will be in Rayford, North Carolina in November, and I'll be back in Tennessee in September. And I think there's a couple more coming in. I'm not sure. I'm waiting on confirmation on that. But I am going to add all the promoters. If you want a 7'3" giant to come to wrestle for you, I'm very serious about this. Private message me or get a hold of my friend here, and let's make these things happen. And the most important match that I would like to see happen is the American Giant scoring off against the Cuban Assassin. I guarantee you, man, the people wants to see it. And believe me, when it comes down to this, business will be taken care of, brother.
And Buck, right quick before we actually wrap things up, and I do know you mentioned promoters getting at you as well. So with that being said, for the fans and the promoters that want to make this match a reality yet again, how do we go about following the American Giant Buck Brezner across all social media platforms? That way we can stay updated on all these bookings, and the promoters that are watching can potentially, hopefully, reach out and actually get you booked on their next card.
Well, I have my website, which is created by my manager, Miss Americana. It's the American Giant official website, and or you go to my personal page, the American Giant Buck Brezner. I will post it on there as it comes. And like I said, you can private message me anytime you want. I'll be more than happy to chat with you. I'll be more than happy to come out and wrestle for your organization. And those are the only two ways that I can be followed. And my manager has done a very good job keeping up to date with the official webpage. Excuse me. And hopefully she'll lead me to the ring again in the near future. She's going through some things right now, but keep her in your prayers as well for a speedy recovery. And that's all I can say. Let's get this year going in the right direction. Is make it happen, man. That's all I ask.
And I gotta say, Buck, thank you so much for a bit of your time. Such a huge honor to be able to chat with you for this past hour and just talk wrestling and your amazing luxurious career within the squared circle. Thank you so much for a bit of your time, and hopefully we can make this happen again sometime soon. But for now, have yourself an amazing Monday night. We definitely shall chat here soon.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you and you as well.
Have a good night, Buck.
Good night.